time to meditate with our spiritual community. And I invite you to close your eyes if that feels comfortable. Let the seat hold you, support you, and breathe. Just notice your breath. You don't need to do anything with it. You need do nothing but be present as we enter this silence. It is time to go within, to go home. Go to the part of your mind where stillness and peace reign forever. Where the path of truth is the only path. Where a power resides who can do for you what you cannot do for yourself. And as a thought flows into your head, let it flow back out. And think about God. And as another thought flows in, let that flow back out. And think about God. You decide what it means to think about God. Perhaps it's a special phrase or an affirmation like, I am as God is, or I'm an expression of God, or I accept God's gifts. It matters not what the outside thoughts may be. As they flow in, just refocus and think on God. We choose what we allow our minds to dwell on. And today, we choose to give consciousness to spirit as we sit in silence together and think about God. We give consciousness to spirit. And in a moment, I invite you back to this space, to your community, and invite you to bring spirit back with you. Right now, we choose to give consciousness to spirit. Right now, we choose to think about God. today, I am as God is. And so it is. We come back to this space and to each other. Welcome back. Hello, my friends.
Hello.
Hello. And so it is happening. I turned 66 in June and I retired on August 4th. 1 week ago from last Friday. And I am here with you today. Coincidence? No. A week before I retired, I spoke over at Unity of Shenandoah. Coincidence? No. I knew then, and I knew now, that I need to work on a message that pulled in spiritual thinking, because there might be so much stuff going through my head to take me off track. And so much stuff has been going through my head this first week of my post-employment period of my life. It's been a bit awkward. How will I do structure in my time? How will I balance my time with people with my time alone? Because if not, I'm gonna get pretty depressed. How about money? You know, that might not go as well as I thought. Also, I've had a career filled with meaning and purpose. It didn't usually matter to me if I wasted my time at night, because during the day, I always felt like I made a difference to someone, or maybe to more than one person. So how will I bring meaning and purpose to my life now? And so this week I had to remind myself that it's a process, not an event, and can I trust it as it unfolds and discover new, perhaps different meaning and purpose? Near the end of our affirmative intention, we say, we affirm guidance in the right direction so that we fulfill our divine purpose on earth. Or as that talented young man sang to us last week, this is my quest to follow that star. James Hollis, in his book, On This Journey We Call Our Life, he notes 2 questions asked of us during our lifetime. And he says the question in the first half of our life is, what is the world asking of me? Then he says, the question in the second half of our life is, what now does the soul ask of me? And he says, we suffer greatly not living the life our soul or psyche wishes us to live, and that something is seeking its fullness through us. So I sat down to write this, and I thought, okay, what do I need to remember as I go through this? What will I remind my Community on the Hill friends? Because I am in need of the reminder, and just hope that it resonates with them. So I looked through a lot of Unity notes and books, and the thing that kept on coming up to me was Emmett Fox's The Golden Key. Now, it's been a while since I've looked at it or made use of it, but I needed it during its transition. Now, those of you who were here last week might remember, Joan gave a wonderful talk. And one of the focuses was the Golden Key. And I was sitting in the back there, and I thought, oh no, Joan, really? And immediately I thought, how interesting. How interesting that 2 long-term members of Community on the Hill independently felt a need to talk about the Golden Key at this moment. That's not a coincidence either. And I wonder, I don't have an answer, but what might it be saying about the consciousness of our congregation at this moment in our journey? Now, for those of you who are not here, or for those of us who are slow learners and fast forgetters, let me remind you quickly of the golden key. He says the golden key to harmony is in your hands. All that you have to do is this. Stop thinking about the difficulty, whatever it is, and think about God instead. This is the complete rule, and if only you will do this, the trouble, whatever it is, will disappear. It makes no difference what kind of trouble it is, because it is God who works and not you. So your particular limitation or weaknesses are of no account in the process. Stop thinking about the difficulty and think about God. He goes on to say that if you could become so absorbed in this consideration of the spiritual world that you really forget for a while all about the trouble, you will presently find you are safely and comfortably out of your difficulty. Stop thinking about the difficulty, whatever it is, and think about God instead. Oh, and he also says, don't think in advance of what the solution will be. Leave that to God too. Whoa, simple words, right? Very simple words, not pages and pages. Not always easy for me to do. But I thought this week, just maybe, if I focus on God and not my anxiety, I'll be open to that guidance in the right direction so that I fulfill my divine purpose on earth at this point in my life. Now, each time I see the golden key, it's like a brick hitting me in the head. How could I forget this? Now, I've prepared pretty responsibly for retirement. My Social Security check was in my account like they said. I was shocked. I was like stunned. It's wonderful to see. I signed up for Medicare, Medicare Part B, supplemental, that'll start next month. I have limited debts. I live a pretty simple life. But this and but that. Some of the buts are so loud. They're old voices, by the way, filled with feeling. The voices up here get so raucous that station WGOD often gets drowned out. They get so loud that at times I want to say to someone, excuse me, but are the voices in my head bothering you? Or else to ask someone, could you hold it down? I'm having a committee meeting up here. I have this committee in my head, rather committees. Perhaps you have one or a few of those. Mine at times like to obsess and worry, catastrophize at times. They're ancient voices, and they grapple often with the unity voices, which is also one of my committees. Is the loudest one on your committee the hurt or scared child from 50 or 60 years ago who still feels the need to protect itself? Maybe from 30 years ago, maybe from 20 years ago. Is the most raucous voice the one of an abusive or demeaning parent or teacher or caregiver from years ago who said, you can't, or you're not smart enough, or thin enough, or talented enough? Maybe it's the voice of our old priest or minister who told us every week that we were sinners, not deserving, that we were not enough for God. We interject all that stuff, but as James Hollis says, it's one thing to have a scared kid within, as we all do. It's something else to turn the conduct of our life over to that child. My child doesn't like change. It puts up roadblocks, even if something comes along that will open up new possibilities. We have to have lots of talks. Too often, that child is in charge of the committee meetings. Well, really, when that happens, we've given up our power. We've let that kid be in charge. Because we are the adult, we chair that committee up here. Course in Miracles talks about separation from God as the only problem. And it says, separation was a descent from magnitude to littleness. I love that. Why would we ever give power to those voices that help us stay little? Emmett Fox reminds us, we choose the thoughts upon which we allow our minds to dwell, for we have accustomed ourselves to this habit of thinking, perhaps to thinking of ourselves as little. In spite of the fact that ruminating or obsessing about something is like putting fire out with gasoline, in spite of the fact that Reverend Amalia Frank used to say, worrying is meditating on what you don't want, and so we descend from magnitude to littleness. Each day we need to ask, who will I give power to today? Which voice will I allow to chair the meeting? Who will I silence or fire? Which one can most firmly refocus the meeting back to God? Because we need to stop thinking about the difficulty, whatever it is, and think about God instead. That's all through unity. Joel Goldsmith reminds us of the same thing. When confronted by any human problem, instead of laboring for an improved human condition, turn from the picture and realize the presence of the divine in you. You know, if our thoughts are prayers, let me ask you, are you praying on the problem or on the divine? Reverend Sandy said that we need to take our eyes off the problem and give consciousness to spirit if we want to be open to all the goodness coming to us. And then Donna Stern, who many of you might know, she, when I started Unity in 1990, she was here. She taught me meditation back last century. That's why I'm so calm. And Donna told me, when she worked with the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, does that sound familiar to anyone? Does that take you back? When she worked with the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, that he called this exact thing self-referral. Go into your higher self. Wisdom is located in the self-referral consciousness, pure intelligence. Now, you folks know me well enough to know going to my higher self is not usually my immediate route in dealing with issues. But more and more I'm walking that path. And as someone said centuries ago, hope is like a path in the countryside. Originally, there was no path. Yet as people walk all the time in the same spot, a way appears. It's the same with the path of thinking about God, of giving consciousness to spirit, of realizing the presence of the divine within us. That needs to be furrowed into our brain so that it becomes a habit. And I mean literally furrowed, because that's what happens with thought patterns. When I was working, I set up this talk. I brought a psychiatrist in to talk to the other social workers. And he talked about new thinking, patterns and the grooves they literally make in the brain. So it certainly is true that the grooves of anxiety and worry in me from my past are very deep. But I work on choosing again, and I've started other grooves in my brain. So I asked him, and I said, you know, what if I stop thinking positively, let's say for an hour, or a few days. But then I go back to it. Is it starting over again with the grooves? And he said, not at all. You just continue on with the groove that you had started, which delighted me. What he was saying was, as we walk all the time in the same spot, a way appears. We are here at church learning to undo habits, to retrain our thinking, which is why I was so attracted to this word I saw, rewirement, instead of return. This woman came up with it. Rewirement. Now really, isn't that why we come to Unity, no matter how old or young we are? To be rewired, to be retrained, to choose thoughts that help us to experience life to the fullest, to stop living with those archaic voices, filaments which reach back to the past but have the strength of steel cables. And certainly rewirement can happen at any stage of life. For the past is not the past if old beliefs and messages direct and guide our lives today. For we live them, they become a reality no matter how old we are. As I was going through notes my last 2 weeks, I saw some notes on a trauma-informed care course that I took. Trauma-informed care, TIC, is a very, very big thing now in terms of working with clients and patients, not just mental health-wise. And what this speaker said is that the person who's gone through trauma is that perception is their reality. That wasn't meant to be a spiritual statement, he said. It's the experience of someone who's experienced trauma, so those who work with them need to be aware of that. Perception is their reality. Now, where have we heard that before? Course in Miracles helps us to become aware of our perceptions, then to unlearn the responses. It's about undoing of our past training. And then, in the lessons section of the course, it's about acquiring new paths, which build new pathways, which means rewiring our thinking. As people walk in the same spot, a way appears. We are as God is. I am as God is. I am as God is. Let's say that together. I am as God is. That's the knowledge we want deeply furrowed in our brain. And that's what I repeated this week as a way to focus on God and off some of the awkwardness and discomfort of experiencing a new life. Now, I want to try something here. I want everyone to think about a problem or stress. I'm not going to ask you to share. Think about a problem or stress that you're dealing with now. And if that's hard for anyone, I'd like to invite you up here to do the rest of the talk and share with us. Okay? Everyone think of something. Now, who would like their problem solved? Who would like to be healed? I don't have a snake. That's going to be for a fall talk. Anyone? Come on. Jade, I was hoping you'd raise your hand. You trust me, Jade. I guess I should ask you. Jade, do you trust me?
I do.
I know you do.
I do.
I want you to close your eyes if you would. Take this dice and just hold it. And I want you to think about something, okay? Think about something and ask for a solution. And when you're ready, just throw it down this lane. Don't throw it in. Just throw it down this lane. The answer will be revealed. Helen, could you come up and read this?
Thank you.
Just to make sure I'm not lying. What does it say?
It says God.
It says God.
Hallelujah.
Anybody else want their problem solved? One other person? Do you want your problem solved? Lucy. Think about something. Ask for a solution. Know that the answer will come. Okay? When you're ready, close your eyes and just throw it in the wind.
God.
What do you know? God's on all sides. That's what I had to remember this week, was that God is on all sides. And I have trouble remembering that. And at times, it's especially important for me to remember that. Sometimes a concrete physical reminder is very helpful. In writing this, I thought of a friend who had retired some years ago who badly needed rewiring. He talked about going from a VIP to FIP, from a very important person to a formerly important person, defining himself by what he used to do at work long after he stopped doing it, still mourning the loss of his identity. But we're more than our job. We're more than a grade at school, whether it's an A or an F. Do they still give A's and F's, or is that an old retired person talking? Okay. We are more than an unkindness. We are more than a mistake. You are more than any task or project or achievement or paycheck. You're more than any situation or mistake. You're an expression of God. You are enough. There's nothing so bad that you could do to make God love you less, and nothing so good you could do to make God love you more. We're told that it's unconditional. What stops us from doing the same with ourselves? Charles Fillmore says God's love is based on law, not on variabilities. It never varies as it does in humans. When we act as if God's love does vary, we are ascribing our human characteristics to the source. Same as those who see God as vengeful or uncaring. Who's really the vengeful or uncaring one? Anne Lamott puts it really well. Anne Lamott says, it's interesting how for some folks, their God happens to hate the same people that they do. Anyway, to God, we are always VIPs. That never changes. Ever. In his book on transitions, Bridges says most of us have been raised to define courage as the emotional fortitude that enables us to hold fast during difficult times, when the courage that is often called for is the courage to let go. Loss is permanent. What is not lost is the possibility of a new beginning, but only when we go and leave space for something else to take its place. Perhaps to allow us to redefine ourselves, to expand our perceptions, to serve others by becoming ourselves. In a book called Creative Aging, she says, we do not have to understand nature's impulse toward growth to observe that it happens. Can we willingly be a part of that, no matter what our age? Instead of kicking, screaming, this is self-disclosure, by the way. Instead of kicking, screaming, throwing tantrums, holding on for dear life to the past, grasping onto how it's supposed to be or what is comfortable for us. Buddha reminds us clinging on to anything causes suffering, including clinging to those days we were VIPs and not realizing that we still are. So what if we let go of the old, and in doing so we discover new talents, surprising abilities, untapped skills? Emily Cady says, we crave more of God to come forth. In the mind that is God, there is always the desire to give more. There's a parable in the scriptures. A wealthy landowner gave 3 men 10 talents, and a talent was weight and unit of currency. He went away. The first 2 managed to double their money through investments. The owner returned, and he found that the 3rd man was frightened of the master's expectations. So he buried his talent in the ground for safekeeping. So although talent is a weight and unit of currency, let's think of it also as special ability or aptitude. And I ask you, what talents have you buried or ignored? What gift is asking for recognition in your life? What gift wants to live through you? And how might you be suffering by not living? Perhaps it's a new role here at Community on the Hill. Carl Jung says we all walk in shoes too small, diminished lives not in accord with our potential. God is always so much more willing to give than we are to receive. How much courage will it take to receive gifts to uncover the treasure? Does it take a retirement, a profound loss, a crisis, a new baby or grandchild, or maybe an illness to discover it? Or perhaps does it take the right words, the right moment, by the right friend to unleash our hidden gifts? And so in ending, I ask you two things that Hollis asks his reader. What are you called to do with your life energies? And what is demanded of you so that you live life more fully? Because no matter your age, something is seeking its fullness through you and through me. And my friends, God wants to give us more. What do you want to be? Green? Yellow? Blue? Take off those shoes that are too small, open your palms and your hearts to receive. Oh, and please feel free to remind me to do the same. We are reminders for each other. Many blessings.